Another topic that we just started to talk about, as we've mentioned a couple of times, is sales and marketing alignment. And I've been doing my job for a very long time, and this topic is always there. It's never far away. But I'm wondering if the paradigm has changed, if this relationship has changed, and maybe that's underpinned by data. I don't know. But Laurence, in your business, you're all about enabling your customers in their sales process. How do you get on with your sales director?
So that's, like sales and marketing alignment. That's I call it Groundhog Day. So I get along very well with my sales director because I am the sales director as well. So that's an easy way to do it. And that's probably like this is something that you see more and more. I have this CMO title, but in effect, I'm probably like the Chief Revenue Officer, and sales is reporting into me. So maybe I can give the example of LinkedIn, where I was not responsible for sales. I think that alignment first comes from leadership, and I managed to build a very strong relationship with the sales director, and so that was critical. We had like a mutual respect. And I earned his respect probably because first, I could manage, the numbers. And I think that something that was really, really critical was predictability. I was able to forecast what will be the marketing contribution, and that was a big win in terms of balancing the relationship. The way we worked together was also, finding something that we shared, something that we had in common, and so we came up with like a shared KPI, and so both our team would contribute to this KPI. So it's alignments is there is an element of relationship, fostering, building a strong relationship with your sales leader. But there is also a more let's say tangible element around numbers, demonstrating your contribution and also demonstrating your ability to forecast your contribution.
So again, those key themes of relationships and deliverability, if that is such a word, I think I've just made that up, are really important. James, in your organisation, do you sit down and have a coffee with your sales leader on a daily basis, or are they chasing you around the room, or how does it work?
Well, yes to all of those. I think tension's a good thing, right? So, we shouldn't sort of shy away from tension, whether it's sales or any other sort of division. I think over the last 20 years, the conclusion I've come to is it's just people dealing with people at the end of the day. I think sometimes marketers need to work harder at the relationship than our sales colleagues do, and that's no sort of slight on sales colleagues. It's doing the basics. It's kind of, you talk to, do I have a coffee? We sit down on a regular basis. So it's around consistency of engagement. It's around clarity and communications, understanding each other's worlds. As I say, I think tension's good, but it's just people dealing with people. We do joint QBRs together. We plan together. We review together. We have an open, honest relationship. I kind of enjoy the relationship. I don't. It's funny when you introduce the topic. Kind of people sort of around the table sort of laughed a little bit, but it's fine.
Peter, in your organisation, and I don't know you very well, the organisation very well, but my understanding is that the partners are almost the sales lead in the organisation. How is
we have a very different dynamic in the sense that there's nobody at Accenture who would admit they're a salesperson. You wouldn't ever have anyone go, I'm in sales. In a sense, they're all in sales because the interface of the client relationship happens every day through client teams, senior, mid-level, junior, and those are what drive the business opportunities. Nor do we have a whole bunch of salespeople sitting there with quotas to fulfill license sales or product sales or all of those. That's not the dynamic. There are people with sales targets, just to be clear. We don't run just a loose business that says everybody do your best. But that dynamic is fundamentally different. It's also fundamentally different because the impact of marketing, as I said earlier, will always be less linear. In that, the buying process is not one person talking to another person and then make a sale and done. It is a whole buyer unit. You have to influence all of them. It takes time, even for short order sales, as you would probably call them. Yeah, consulting sales, it takes some time, and who knows whether that event you invited them to and that piece of content marketing you've been feeding them with and the social targeting you've been doing, what the contribution to that was in terms of the sale that happens. So the areas are much grayer, and as a result, actually what we focus on with all of those account teams is the state of the relationship. The named individuals, who are they, what do we know about them, data and insights, and what do we believe the relationship currently looks and feels like, and against that, where are the things that we have to sell that they might want to buy that they don't today. So there is a degree of, if you like, account mapping, but I wouldn't say it goes into the depth that many of you probably have. You were just talking about those, the pipeline predictability. I think, I would be hostage to fortune if I ever tried to give any of my client account leads that kind of insight. So I think it's a very different dynamic, and in that sense, the tension exists. I just wouldn't call it sales and marketing tension. I think it's the classic tension of any organisation. You say about people who are differently driven and trying to achieve sometimes different things, and you just have to work through that. But I don't end up in stand-up rows with my sales director accusing me of not delivering the pipeline that he expected. Mm-hmm. That's not my world. We have different types of stand-up arguments.
I can imagine. Lindsay, in your world, is it bun fights over SQLs or MQLs and where the pipeline's leading?
It's exciting conversations around those things, but I think the main thing that in joining a lot of different companies, you always come in and especially in emerging businesses, marketing and sales, it's surprising how much they don't work together, mm-hmm. and they're oftentimes just doing their own thing, and you kind of think, how does this even work? I mean, part of what marketing is trying to do is to drive pipeline for sales. Like, that is a large fundamental purpose of marketing. So I'm a huge advocate of coming in and helping the sales organization understand how marketing can influence and support what they're doing, while also helping guide them and lead them in their messaging and how they're talking to customers and understanding personas. So really, I try to focus around communication. Mm-hmm. I think it's huge. It's something that's so easily missed. You think everyone knows because it's so obvious to you as a marketer, but actually when you start having conversations with salespeople, they're like, I had no idea. Oh my goodness, that's really helpful. Secondly, it's about buy-in. So getting them on side with what you're doing. How can you help them with little things to help them go, hey, actually, you're really valuable in what you're doing, and then they'll look to you for guidance and support. Mm-hmm. There's a fine balance to be had there, because sales will always want more and more, even if they're not using it. But it's those fun conversations to have. And then I think the third thing is around compromise. So there are different agendas in marketing. It's not all about building pipeline. There's the brand consideration, mm-hmm. the internal communications, corporate. So you have to help them understand the bigger picture as well. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I won't name names, but I use a different sales automation platform, and which is
dynamic.
I couldn't possibly comment. I've just realised which rabbit hole I'm going down. But the bottom line is that oftentimes in marketing, I want that data. I want to understand who that customer is. I want the contact information. I want to know how many times they visited the website and how many interactions we've had. But on the flip side, I've got sales guys who are, to quote, too busy to complete information and input information in that. And that creates a real conflict, because it means that I can't be as effective on one side as I'd like to be for the other side. Scott, in your organisation, well-oiled machine as it is, I'm sure, how are your relationships with the sales side? How does that work on a day-to-day basis?
So first of all, we've got 3 sales directors, because we've got the enterprise side, the public sector side, and then the SMB mm-hmm. into mid-corporate size as well. So what I've done personally, because it starts with me, I feel it starts with me, what I've done is, since I came into the business 3.5 years ago, I've walked the floors, I've spent time with them, but also I'm part of their leadership teams as well. Mm-hmm. So I go to their LT meetings every month. I'm part of some of their WhatsApp groups, so you get to sort of that personal thing, you get to know them there as well. That then can flow down into the rest of the team. So back to what Lindsay was saying, I think what we've been looking at is what are the areas that we can help them with. So the bit that they don't often really understand that's helping them is the reputation bit. So just going into meetings and saying we're investing X million on Surface, Office and Windows TV and other ATL activities over the next 3-4 months, that gives you air cover. You don't need to do anything. That's going to give you some air cover. Alongside that, this is what the demand creation stuff we're going to do. And then probably the bit that really starts to resonate with sales is how we can enable them to sell better. So we've talked a lot about, it's not about 0 to 20% in the customer journey now. It's about 0 to 100%. And in Microsoft world, also in how they use the products once we've sold them. So when we can start talking to them how we can help you this part of the sales cycle right through to this is how we can help you close a win, and we'll help package the stuff up for you, whether that's the latest case studies, whether that's get them along to this event because it will allow them to do this. It starts to become more meaningful for them rather than saying, I got you this many SQLs, MAQLs, MQLs, whatever terminology you want to use. They don't care, so we don't talk about that. We talk about how these 3 areas of sales enablement, demand creation and reputation is helping you, and then as humans, we help them package up and use that in a more meaningful way. And what that's done is just given us credibility, given us a seat at the sales table. And the final bit is, how do you communicate with them on a monthly basis? First of all, we haven't got phantom sales and marketing connection meetings. We go where they are. So they've got an all hands, they've got a weekly team meeting, a scrum, a stand-up scrum, whatever it might be. Go along to there, and that's where we get the teams embedded in. Because if you go where they are, they're going to be there, and they start to embrace you in. And then we use our own tools. We use Yammer, we use Microsoft Teams to make sure that the communication on a daily basis is there, and that just shows the value add that you can give as well. So it's about how do you make that in-person contact, but also how are you communicating between the in-person contact as well.
So traditionally, go where the sales are. Generally, in my experience has been down the pub. But maybe it's moved on a little bit.
It has moved on.
Good, that's great. What I'd like to finish on actually is if we could just offer some advice to the new generation of senior marketers coming through. So any thoughts on what do you wish you'd known? And then related to that, what is the one piece of advice you'd give somebody coming through in their marketing career? So maybe Lindsay, I could start with you.
Sure. So what did I wish I knew? I think, starting my career, over a decade ago, you looked up to leaders in marketing and thought, you build a perception of what their role is like, and you think, okay, great, I know exactly what I'm getting into. I think what I wish I had known is don't set any expectations for what you think a senior marketer role is like, especially how things are changing so quickly. And just be open and flexible and coming into just being ready for anything, but really trying to be mindful of you're always learning, you're always growing, you're always, listening. I think that's really important. And then the second part of that question was...
you've almost answered it, but it's kind of what advice would you give? But I'm guessing that is the learning, listening.
Yeah, I think that, there's still, even though you're at the top of your field, there's still a lot to be learned with the changing industry and staying relevant. We've talked a lot about that today, but I think it's really important not to kind of rest on your laurels and just be proactive about it.
Fantastic. James, one thing that you wish you'd known and one thing that you'd recommend to somebody coming through?
So when I started my career more than a decade ago, slightly double that, I started off in Oracle. And Oracle at that time was a pretty aggressive sales-led company. And, as a marketeer, you were probably a bit of a second-class citizen. And I can remember going to, company kickoffs with your name badge on that says James in marketing and sort of almost walking around, sort of hiding it, And then after leaving Oracle, I went to a startup and I sat with salespeople and engineers and designers and all, because it was a smaller company. And you realise there are good salespeople and there are not so good salespeople. You realise there are good marketeers and not great marketeers. So the lesson for me, I guess, was just to take pride in what you're doing, what value you can add to the company, and not to be what I would call a subservient marketeer or an apologetic marketeer. There's a ton of value that marketeers can add. And in fact, every year I'm seeing more value that marketeers can add. So be proud of what you do and don't be subservient.
Fantastic. That's great. Peter?
I think mine's probably a little like Lindsay. It's nobody has all the answers. You used to look up at these mythical beasts and think They had everything sorted. The decks looked great. The relationships with the board looked amazing. You know, their teams all looked like they loved them. But you get up there, and it doesn't look or feel like that to me every day. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is not fragile, but it is fluid. It is, you know, loads of shades of grey. The relationships need a lot of work, and I guess so. So it's never as perfect as it looked, I guess, was the lesson I've learned. What I tell my younger people is, you work hard, be smart. It's hard work. It's hard work to do any job, actually, I think. But yeah, it's hard work, and you've got to work hard, you've got to be smart, and build teams. Those three things, you know, work hard, be smart, build teams. Actually, that probably goes for anything, not marketing, not business, not finance, anything really. Do those three things, you'll probably do okay.
Fantastic, thank you. Scott?
So, similar theme, don't feel that you need to feel you know everything. There is more to learn, so often you think, oh, if I'm going to lead marketing, I need to know everything, everyone's job, I need to know everything that's going on. You obviously have to be the leader of the business, but hiring people who know more than you, like I don't have better knowledge than my head of social media, and nor should I, so it's just really being clear about that. And to James's point, don't try and pitch the value of marketing all the time. This is what we've done this month, we're great. If you do your job properly, the value will get seen across the business. I think the advice would be, don't overthink and don't overdo. There's a phrase we like to use, which is done is better than perfect, and more often than not, done is better than perfect.
Fantastic, thank you. Laura.
So my phrase will be fewer things done better. What I've learned along my career, and I have like a number of scars and bruises, is that you can't do it all. So like it's very easy to get distracted, especially, you know, in marketing, when there is always a great opportunity of sponsoring, like, or a very interesting campaign that you want to run. And so you really have to pick your battles. So you have to understand what is expected from you, especially when you take a new role. Like what is expected from you, like in the 3-6 months in your role, and really focus on this, and make sure that you don't run after like all the shiny objects.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you all very much for your time. It's been a fascinating conversation. I've learned something. I felt slightly uncomfortably excited, which is great. And I'd like to close by just saying it's done, and therefore it's better than perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.